You'll find most of the settings you need in Windows 8 in the new Settings app. The Settings app works two different ways. Run it from the Start screen to make choices about how Windows should work, and the other way is that when you're running a program, you go to Settings to configure options for that program. You may be familiar with the control panel in earlier versions of Windows. That hasn't gone away, and we'll look at it in a later chapter. For now, we'll start our tour of the Settings screen by looking at how it manages users.
I'll go into the Settings app by rolling the mouse down over the lower right corner of the screen. Go up here, choose Settings, and then down here to PC Settings. Now, in an earlier chapter, we went through personalized settings, looking at the lock screen and a few of these others. So we've already done that. We've covered it. I'll go over here to Users because this is where we manage the users. And it tells me, yes, indeed, this is my account. Here's a picture of that handsome guy, and there's an email address that I'm using. Now you see over here, it says you can switch to a local account, but you won't get your settings synced. This means that Windows is not forcing you to use a Microsoft email address to go and use a computer. You could use a computer perfectly well with the email address you've already been using. If it's a personal one or a corporate one, that's fine. The whole purpose of using one that is a Microsoft email address, and you can see this is Hotmail. Hotmail is owned by Microsoft. It gives you the ability to sync your settings. And we'll talk about syncing your settings later on in this chapter. So if I decide that I want to use a local account instead of a network account, then I can simply click this and do that. And as we'll discuss later on in this chapter, the fact that I'm signed in with a networked Microsoft email address is what allows me to have the sync your settings feature down there. So you might be asking, if I want to get a Microsoft email address, where do I get it and what does it cost? Well, the answer to the second question is it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. And the answer to the first question is where do you get it? And that is you go to, I'll show you this website here. You go to login.live.com. If you've already registered and you have an account, then you can go and sign in over here on top. But you see down over here where it says don't have a Microsoft account, sign up now. That's where you would go and do it. Let's go back to the settings screen. So if you click this option, More Account Settings Online, it'll bring you to the website that I just showed you, and that's where you can change things like password, birth date. In case you feel like being a little younger, I don't know, you can change your birth date, change your phone number, notification settings, and other general permissions. Let's take a look at a few other options here. If I want to change my password, of course, I can click right over there. And when I do that, it brings me to the screen. I can type in what's my current password and then type in what my new password is. I'm not going to do that, so I'll just click Cancel. Now, I have also these other two options, create a picture password and create a PIN. Now, these are new features in Windows 8. And they're meant if you're running Windows 8 on a tablet. And this is pretty neat. You know, when you're using a tablet that doesn't have a built-in keyboard, using the kind of on-screen keyboard to type a complicated password could be a little tedious. So here's what we do. Let me click that. Now, I have to type in the password. And when I click OK, you see we've got these little arrows and things here. Now, I'm not actually going to do it because I'm using a regular laptop, not a tablet. But what you could do is with your finger on a tablet, you can kind of squiggle around here. And when you squiggle around on the screen, that will be your password because it'll be your particular gestures. And if you decide you want a different picture, you can click here, choose a different picture. So I'm not actually going to do this, but you might want to try this if you're using a Windows 8 tablet. So let me cancel out. Another option you have, again, something you might want to do with a tablet, is to create a PIN. So let me click that. Once again, it asks for my password. And when I OK that, it gives me this screen here to create a PIN. And it's simply a 4-digit number. Now, there's some pros and cons to this. The pro is that if you're using a tablet and it's just not the easiest thing in the world to type in on the on-screen keyboard, it's a lot easier to type in 4 digits than it is to type in some long complicated password. And if you decide you want to do that, of course you just enter it here and then you type it in a second time. Now, if you do that, your PIN should not be 1234, because if somebody finds your tablet or somebody steals your tablet, that's the first PIN that they're going to try. So you want to do something a little more complicated than that. So that's the pro, is just making it easier. And of course you could use it on a laptop, not just on a tablet. The con is that it's not nearly as secure. So I'll leave that up to your judgment as to whether you want to do that or not. So I'll just cancel out. And now down over here, see it says a user who has a password doesn't have to enter it when waking the PC. What that means is that, let's say if I get up from my desk and I walk away for whatever it is, half hour, hour or so, however I have the power settings configured, if the computer goes to sleep and then somebody comes along and jiggles the mouse or hits the keyboard to wake the computer up, do you need to type in a password to be able to use it or not? So again, I'll leave that up to you. Now, if you want to go and add a user, you could click over here, add a user, and then you can add another user on this machine. By the way, you'll notice that I'm in here a second time. I have one user here, and usually you'll see an email address here, but it's not visible now for security purposes. Up here, I've got a different user account with a different picture and email address. And the reason is I use one login just to do training and another login for my own personal stuff. So you might want to do that also. Even if you're not doing training, you might want to have 2 different accounts, perhaps for 2 different purposes. And of course, if you have a spouse or you have kids or somebody else who wants to share your computer, that's how you could give multiple people access to the same machine.